Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. It's another week, but it's not just another week. It's Masters Week, which for me is the biggest sporting event week of the year. I mean, I trade in a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not a baseball guy, so I don't care about the World Series. But I trade in a Super Bowl, NCAA national championships, anything. I'll trade those in for the Masters. So definitely a special time. Super excited about the Masters. Um, it's just one of my. I mean, it's my favorite thing. I got to go back in 2016, and I want to go back again so bad. And I know a bunch of you who have won tickets for the 20 Master or 2020 Masters, didn't get to go, or it's a whole debacle, and I feel horrible for you, but I definitely want to go back again. So super excited for that. But before we get into it, this episode brought to you by Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls. So the new Pro V1, Pro V1X for 2021, completely designed from, cover to core. So brand new ball. Pro V1 is going to give you a little softer feel, a little flatter, more mid ball flight, and the long game spin with the driver top of the bag is going to be really low, but you're still going to get a ton of greenside control and spin, for those shots as well. Pro V1X, it's going to be a slightly firmer feel, a little higher ball flight, and spin just a touch more off the long irons and with the short irons. So if you're looking for a little more height, go Pro V1X. Looking for something a little flatter trajectory, go Pro V1. Both balls phenomenal. The new one I haven't hit yet. Maybe I'll play if it doesn't rain on Thursday. I'll probably go out and play them then. But like I said, the Pro V1, Pro V1X, they're the bar that is set. So like I said, the number one ball in golf. Check out more at Titleist.com. But yeah, the new Pro V1X, really great. I can't wait to get them out on the course. I'm super excited. So I've hit some other balls already. These just haven't felt the game's ready yet. I think it's something about you go Pro V1 when you feel kind of ready. Your game's there, and I don't know if my game ever gets there, but maybe one day. So anyway, it's Masters Week. Super excited for the Masters. Like I said, I've always been a huge Masters guy for a long time. I mean, probably the past, I don't know, 20 years. Ever since I basically got back into golf, I was a guy who I started playing when I was like 8 or 10 with my dad. He'd take me out to some pretty much goat tracks that were pretty rough courses, but whatever, taught us how to play, my brother and I. And then I kind of gave it up all through kind of middle school and high school. I played other sports. I had other things to do, and golf wasn't one of them. So I may play maybe once a year, but I probably didn't even average that. And then, basically, 2001-ish, I was working at a shop, and I just fell in love with the game again, fell in love with the Masters. It was just like, everything kind of fell into place there with my love of golf. So ever since then, it's the one tournament I always look forward to. Always wanted to go. Like I said in my total intro, I went in 2016, and it, I know some people are like, never meet your heroes. This was, it was more than I even thought it was going to be. It was absolutely phenomenal. So if you ever do get the chance to go, please go. It is, it's one of the greatest experiences you'll have in golf. I got to go with my dad, my brother, and my uncle, and it was, like I said, we just had a blast. We walked every single hole. We went on a Monday practice round, and or was it Tuesday practice round? Might have been Tuesday. No, it was Monday because we drove home Tuesday. But we basically road tripped it from Detroit down to Augusta. I've got an aunt. An aunt and a cousin that both live right outside of Augusta, so had a free place to stay. It was awesome. And my aunt actually won the tickets she puts in every year. She actually won them, and she knew we all wanted to go, so called us up and said, "Hey, if you want to go, here you go." We got 4 tickets, and we got to go. And then her and her family and all that, they get out of there. It's like spring break. They take off. They went on vacation, and we got a free condo to stay at. It was great. So we had an awesome time. So. My Aunt Candy, shout out to her. I know she will never listen to this, but shout out to her for our tickets from 2016. But it was so awesome. I'm super excited for the tournament to be on, to be back in April. I mean, it was cool to have it in November because at least we had it, but I'm super excited to be back in April. It just feels right. But it does feel different. I mean, it feels like we haven't waited that long, and we haven't. I mean, it happened in November, so it's kind of an interesting feeling, but still super excited. I love just sitting there watching golf channels, live from the range, and just, seeing how green that place was, how perfect it is. And when you're there, it is exactly that. I mean, the first step on grass when you walk through that main gate is probably the most perfect fairway you'll ever see. I mean, unless you play at some pretty prestigious club, which I'd question why you're listening to this podcast, but no, but it's like, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So that first step on grass, you're just blown away. And it is absolutely perfect. There is no stick out of place, no leaf out of place. I mean, it's absolutely immaculate, and everybody there knows it's special. Nobody's throwing garbage on the ground or anything like that. It's a really great place. So I want to go back badly. I'm hoping one of these years I'll win some tickets and get back and get to enjoy it. But for now, I'm going to sit at home and watch it like a lot of us will. So. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay. So I'll take that, and it'll be fun. I know we have picks coming out. I don't know if our picks went out yet on the site, but a bunch of Golf Wrx staffers. We did picks for this year, and I don't know if it went out yet. So I won't talk about my pick yet. But no. So it's fun. I don't get into the fantasy stuff, all that. I don't want to be bothered with it. I just want to go watch. And I just want to hope that Sunday's an awesome time. So, Sunday's got a couple guys coming on, a couple big names coming on the stretch, all that would be phenomenal. So, but this show, we've got a wedge show. And what I'm talking about today is two different wedges that I was kind of really excited for one of them. And then the other one showed up, and I was actually even kind of more excited for that one. And it was pretty interesting. Both really good wedges. I was really happy to be able to go hit both of these. But yeah, the two new wedges, and they both just came out. So it's basically the Edel, which I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. I think it's like Edel, but the Edel, Edel, which if you don't know is a kind of I won't call them boutique, but they're a smaller manufacturer of irons, wedges, and putters down in I think they're based out of Texas. And David Edel is the kind of the mastermind behind everything, and he is a golf engineering kind of genius guy. I haven't met him, but I know Johnny Wonder and some other guys went down there a few years ago, and the guy is just an absolute just genius when it comes to just mechanical stuff and figuring things out, and all these different engineering things. I mean, the guy's just extremely smart. So his irons and wedges and stuff like that are typically not conventional. I think he was the one who kind of worked with Bryson in the beginning on the single length stuff before Bryson went to Cobra. I think I saw some prototype stuff of his that were Edel wedge or irons that had like big old weights welded to the toe and all this stuff to make them, to get the swing weights right and bring the head weights up and all that stuff. So super smart guy. I think he makes his own clocks and watches and stuff. I mean, he's just like that, just super smart, and he does things a little different. And I saw some of his wedges years ago. I think that actually when our boy Tursky was working here, he went down and did a little thing. They built like a Golf Wrx wedge, and it had a very unique shape, an absolute ton of bounce, and it kind of had full face grooves. And this was like 4 years ago. I think the only thing out there, it was probably like 4 years ago. And the only thing out there really that had something similar to that was like, I think the PM grind was kind of the only thing out there that had the full face grooves and all that. I don't think TaylorMade had come out with the high toe yet. So it was like a really unique look. It's a very rounded wedge. It was just very interesting. And, I actually never hit it. It might actually still be in the basement. I might, maybe I might hang it on the wall behind me. It's very cool, stamped all up and everything like that. So, I've kind of known of Edel. I haven't hit much of their stuff. I think I took a few, putts with one of their putters before. Never hit any of their irons, anything like that. And then, started talking to the guys, end of last year, early part of this year, and found out they were coming out with a new wedge, and they were really excited about it. Everything, a lot of tech, tons of new stuff going into it. Very, very Edel. I mean, the people who love their products love all the tech and all the stuff that goes into it. So they came out with basically the brand new SMS Wedge, which SMS stands for Swing Match System, which are basically the movable weights on the back of the wedge. So you've got three weights here. In here, it's basically two 2-gram weights and, oh, I'm sorry, mine's out here. So two 2-gram weights and an 8-gram weight. And in the sole here, and basically what they found is through a lot of their, testing and analysis and all that these movable weights actually, even though they're 8 grams, 2 grams, whatever they, that weight, that they actually do make a difference for majority of people's swings. And they found that like 40% of players, if they, will basically, when they get fit, won't have that heavy weight, the 8-gram weight or whatever it's going to be for their wedge in the center. Most of them will probably have it on the heel, maybe a few on the toe, whatever, depending on, where where their tendency is to miss shots. If there's somebody who they basically hit all their shots, kind of right of target, you're going to move that heavier weight into the heel, and it's going to help basically rotate that face shut and hit it more straight. And the same thing, where if your swing path is kind of, inside to out, and you kind of miss it to the, or kind of outside to in, and you miss it to the left, you'll move that weight out to the toe. And same thing, it'll help kind of with that accuracy, squaring up the club face, and just hitting more consistent shots. So it's a movable weight system there, but not only that, I mean, the directional bias is there, but they've also found that moving this weight will actually increase spin as well. That most players, depending on their swing and when they get fit, they'll kind of play with these weights, and they found that it'll increase spin quite a bit, moving that weight into the correct spot for each player's swing, and they'll get more consistent spin, more spin, more consistent spin, and it'll just overall be a better performing wedge. So very interesting concept. I know that, movable weight technology has been in woods and irons and all that for a long time. They're probably, I'm going to say this is the first wedge I've seen with it. I know somebody could correct me and say, there's probably been a wedge with movable weights before, but a very unique system, and honestly, it's a really good looking wedge. I think, like I said, I've seen some previous Edel wedges. They definitely are a different look. They're not super traditional in terms of their look. They tend to be a little more rounded, a little more kind of, ball on the end of a stick look. This here, much more traditional. I mean, it really is. When you set it down, almost zero offset. Literally zero. I mean, the hosel just transitions right into the leading edge almost perfectly. The shape is, still quite a little bit rounded, but it's stretched a little heel to toe, so it does look a little more traditional. It does have the basically full face grooves, and then it's also got a micro milled face as well. You're not going to be able to see it on this video here, but it's got a micro milled face pattern as well. All that stuff to kind of help increase spin. And, the sole is all CNC milled, kind of like you would notice with some other wedges, like TaylorMade's, milled grind. Sole's milled, so again, consistency. If you, buy one wedge, you want to buy another one because you either wore it out or whatever, you're getting the exact same, sole. And then it also comes in 4 different grinds, depending on the player. So this is the C grind, which is actually for the shallowest players, so the shallowest swings, people who are going to pick the ball, not really take big divots, take, medium to smaller divots, and also pretty versatile for people who want to open the face, where the leading edge is going to go crazy and lift off the ground. But it's got a little more sole width as well, just so when you do open it out of the trap, it's easy to play. But again, this is pretty much made for your sweeper, picker, people who are a little more shallow with their swings. And it's funny because that's really not my game, but they also make a T grind, a V grind, and then a D grind, which as you go up, basically C, T, V, D. D has the most bounce, and it's going to have actually a little kind of almost cutout in the sole. And it's basically a high bounce option that is for players like me who've got a pretty steep angle attack, take pretty large divots. And it's basically a dual sole, so it's got like a little sole in the front, it's got a channel dug out of it, and then the sole in the back. And basically when you open that face, it's going to float really easily through any type of sand or any type of rough, where if you play it square, that little channel there is still going to allow you to get the leading edge down, pick it off at tight lies. So like I said, kind of 4 different wedge grind options. And the wedge looks really good. It's one of those things when you get this in your hands and you set it down, you look at it, it's a good looking wedge. I mean, the shape is great. I think they kind of nailed that. They've kind of really refined that shape from previous wedges. And the top line looks pretty thin. It's it's a great looking wedge. It's I think it's forged out of, it's a forged carbon steel head. I want to say it's like, I can't remember what the steel is. I remember looking up, it's like it's 1025 carbon steel. So forged out of Japanese 1025 carbon steel. Just overall, it's got a great little ferrule on it that's like, all the paint feels black and red. And the ferrule's got some red and silver striping on it, and it's just a good looking setup. Then overall, I mean, it's a great looking package. I mean, they really put a lot of thought into this thing. You can tell they put a lot of engineering into it. And I took it out on the range into a short game area over the weekend. And the other thing too, I'm a big fan of is like, this is for the shallowest player, right? Like the sea grind is made for players who kind of have pick it more. They've got a shallow angle of attack. And when you look at this thing head on, the leading edge is so blunt and so rounded off that even a guy like me who I feel like is pretty steep, dude, I mean, had no problem with this thing. Like, it didn't really feel like it wanted to dig, anything like that. It's basically got a rounded edge, a little bit of kind of camber, I want to call it, or an angle there at the very beginning, and then you get the sole, then the trailing edge relief. There's a lot going on in the sole. There are a lot of angles. And I'll tell you what, it gets through the turf really well. Super impressed. I don't know if I didn't have high hopes or whatever it was, but I literally went into it knowing, I'm like, when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I hit it, so I took it to the range first, and the first shot I hit, I kind of hit it fat. It was kind of high in the face, but kind of off to the toe a little bit. Not crazy, but just a little off the toe. Hit it kind of, got behind it. And I was hitting at this little flag out there, which was like, I think I was just hitting like 50-yard shots. And they sent a 58, which I love it. It's really great. Unfortunately, I mean, I play a 60 typically, so the only downside is, do I bend it or do I go get a 60? So I don't know yet. I'm going to have to figure that out. But anyway, first shot I hit, kind of high toe, caught it a little fat. I was like, well, that's going nowhere. And it literally bounced 5 feet short of the pin. That it was a little a flag. It's not like a green. It's just basically it stuck a flag in the ground and it's at 50 yards. So the first shot I hit there, I was like, nope, not going to make it. Landed 5 feet from the pin. I was like, wow, it was just right there. And then over hitting shots over and over again, extremely soft. It's probably on par with one of the softest wedges I've hit. I think that was the Epon Tour wedge is probably one of the softest I've hit this year. This is probably very, very close, if not just behind it. The feel on it's phenomenal, even with the crappy range balls. Striking it on the center, it absolutely just thuds. Extremely soft, very responsive. Even hitting it off the toe and the heel a little bit, you get a little more vibration, you can feel it, but the sound is still really it's soft, muted. And like I said, you just kind of get that thud when you make contact with it. Out on the range, you can still see on here some ball marks where it took a little bit of cover kind of with it. But the spin seemed to be really good. Went over to the short game area. There I was hitting mostly full shots. I hit some kind of slightly open face shots at like 50 yards just to kind of see if I can get the ball up. But it flights really well. It probably flies very similar, maybe just a hair lower than my Vokies. I mean, again, this is a 58, so comparing 58 to 60, of course it's going to fly a little lower, but trajectory was really easy to control. You could hit shots low, you could hit them high, you could pretty much do anything. At the range, I was kind of, slightly open face, hitting shots out there, and, I know it's, basically hitting into rough, but the ball was just stopping instantly. And it was one of those things where the way they designed the sole, I just felt like you could hit any shot. You could press it forward. You could hit kind of a low spinning shot in there. You could kind of open up the face, hit it high and soft. And then square shots, played just like a square shot, should with a regular wedge. But that was all mats, and, you always kind of like, mats and testing wedges is nothing. So right next door to the old Royal Oak Range is the old 9-hole course that I grew up on, Royal Oak Golf Course. And I grew up on this little 9-hole gem, which through the years has seen very, very, very good course conditions and extremely poor course conditions, depending on who is running it and the years. But they've got a little short game area where they have, a putting green and a chipping green. So I went over there and I brought this wedge and the other wedge I'll talk about in a minute, and just hit basically wedge shots. Just anything from basically 20 to 30 yards and in, anything right around the green. Shots that I probably normally wouldn't hit with a 58. I was just kind of hitting everything and just seeing kind of how it would work. Now, they didn't have anything that was crazy tight lies because it's now April in Michigan, and the grass is just starting to kind of get back. It just started to grow, so it was still kind of matted down a little bit. The rough was kind of patchy, but I tell you what, out of the rough, the spin was consistent. I mean, you would hit it, you'd get a little release depending on the trajectory you're hitting the shot. But it was really predictable and really consistent. I mean, every time you hit the shot that, if you're going to open the face a little, try to hit it high, let it land soft, you knew, out of the rough, you knew exactly, how much run out. And it pretty much was in a little triangle every time. When you hit, like I brought 3 balls, I took a sleeve, threw them down, I'd hit, 3 shots, and then I'd go back, switch wedges, hit some different shots. And I just kind of went around hitting all sorts of different shots around that little short game area. And the other thing I was kind of interested, or it was really interesting, is that blunt leading edge. I would kind of play that shot where you'd press the wedge forward, like you just had to kind of nip it off that tight lie and just, hit a little kind of low spinning shot in there. And that blunt leading edge just got through the turf great. It didn't have, excessive bounce where it hit and jumped up into the ball and you sculled it, or, hit it low and hot beyond the target. It was still easy to get down and under the ball. And it overall was just, any shot I wanted to hit, like I said, open face, knock it up there. Now, in the tightest, craziest of lies, you may have a little issue with it. The leading edge does sit a little high, but like I said, for me, nothing, like no problem here. Let me try to mount my wedge up here for the old YouTube crowd. But the wedge was super easy to hit off pretty much any line, any shot you wanted to hit. Like I said, I was hitting open face kind of flop shots. I was hitting, standard just, wedge shots with the face square, closing the face down a little bit, pressing it forward, hitting low shots in that spun a lot. And, shots hit off really tight lies were pretty much tight lies, got down under the ball, was able to pinch it, get it to hit, check up almost immediately. The spin on it was really good. Like I said, out of the rough, you had you kind of knew exactly how much it was going to release based on the trajectory you kind of brought it in at, and the feel was great. I mean, just like at the range, extremely soft. Out of those shots there, being a little shorter, you're not compressing the ball as much. You had a slight click, but I mean it was very muted, and the feel to your hands was really good. I don't really have anything bad to say about the wedge. The grind on it, that C grind, as much as I sat there and when I first looked at, all the information they sent us in terms of all the grinds, I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, I hope I don't get a C grind, because I think I do want, either, one of the T or the V. I'm like, the D grind looked really cool. I just didn't know if that was going to be exactly what, I needed, but whatever. I wanted one of the other 3. And when I got the C, I was a little bummed, to be honest, when I opened the box, but honestly, it was phenomenal. Like I said, every shot I wanted to hit, no problem. I mean, it was like one of those, you set it down, you instantly feel comfortable after like 5 balls. So after I basically kind of hit a little open face shot, when I hit, something kind of low and got it to check up, when I hit a couple square shots, I mean, it was just like, after like 4 or 5 balls, it was just like one of those, I just felt comfortable with the wedge. Like you didn't second guess anything. You basically just decided on the shot, depending on where I threw the ball down, and you just hit that shot, and you didn't, I didn't even think about it. And it was just, it didn't take me long to get really comfortable with how that wedge played, because it's extremely consistent. The movable weight part of it, so I kind of have this kind of outside to in, and I miss everything kind of a little bit left typically, because I kind of get over the top and steep, and that's why I'm steep. I kind of get over the top and steep. My club path goes kind of from out to in, and I hit everything kind of left. So I had on the range, I had the weight basically in the center all the time, and I was hitting it right at the target. I really didn't have much. If anything, my swing would cause it to go a little left. So I decided to kind of move the weight out to the toe. And I do have to say, I don't know if I noticed it spinning more, but I definitely, again, thought that it was extremely consistent with the weight out there. Like I said, was it tighter dispersion? Maybe a little. Like I said, I was hitting it pretty good that day, so I don't know if it was, just that, but I think it was a little better for me out on the toe. Like I said, the spin portion, I didn't think I noticed a ton of it stopping it either really faster or anything like that. But I think I was maybe a little more consistent with that weight out on the toe. And, like I said, I'll find out a little more as I play it more, and as I, hopefully I'm going to take it out. If it doesn't rain, I'm going to try to play Thursday. If I do, I'll have it with me, and I'll be able to really test some really, more full shots and things like that with it. But, overall, just I think Edel's done a great job with this wedge. They really, like I said, the feel on it's great. The look of it's good. I mean, there's nothing really that I don't like about it. I mean, honestly, it's it's one of those things where I usually have something kind of negative to say about a wedge or about a club. I mean, there's always, nothing's ever perfect, but this is really good, and I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to play it. Like I said, my only thing is, I've got a 58. I kind of wish I had a 60. I may, and we'll see. Maybe I'll bend it and see if maybe adding just that 2 degrees of bounce maybe even makes it better for me. It might. So, but the way I was playing it was really good. I haven't played a 58 in a long time. I used to play 50, 54, 58, and it's been a little while since I've done that. But and I wouldn't say I'd be opposed to it, but I've kind of gotten used to the 60 and playing it, around the greens, so it'll be interesting. And again, that's not like a knock because it's a 58. It's a 58. I mean, they make a 60. It's not like they don't. But overall, like I said, the C grind is really good. I mean, for shallow, swings, I mean, you'll be able to pick the ball with no problem. Even off firm conditions, you're going to be able to pick it and even open that face up a little bit and hit those kind of flop shots off some tight lies with, I think, zero issue. Judging by the width of the sole, I think hitting it out of the sand is going to be no problem either. Again, unfortunately, the short game there doesn't have a trap, so I wasn't able to hit it there. But, the way it played around the green and all that, I was just really impressed. It really kind of wowed me in a way that I didn't think it would. And, I think they've really hit kind of a home run with this thing. I think it's going to be a really good wedge for them. And I think a lot of people who probably previously didn't look at Edel for whatever reason, whether they didn't know they existed, didn't really love the shapes, or anything like that, I think this wedge can really convert a lot of people. And I think, once you get to hit a few of these, and especially if you probably go through a fitting, I can only imagine how much better your wedge game may get with one of these. So, like I said, the SMS, which, is their new wedge, and like I said, it's the swing match system. It's just overall really impressive. Like I said, I'm super impressed with that C grind. It can hit everything. And like I said, I'll find out in terms of traps and things like that, hopefully on Thursday if I get to play, as long as it doesn't rain. But right now, I'm super excited to kind of put it in the bag. And like I said, I may just bend it to 60 and call it a day and see how it plays. And unfortunately, that means my 60 is probably going to be replaced with one of these. It's just that good. So, like I said, if you're somebody who loves kind of something different in your wedges, want something really soft and responsive, and still, just all around a really good wedge, check out these Edel SMSs. They're really good. It's super impressive and extremely consistent. I mean, it was just, like I said, one of those things where you put it in play, and after like 5 balls, you just felt comfortable with the wedge. Like you never were second guessing. Like, do I need to open this a little more? How's the sole going to react? Or, when the sole hits the turf, is it going to bounce? Is it going to do this? It just didn't. It got right through the turf. It was smooth. But like I said, it still had. Even for me, it seemed like it had enough bounce where I wasn't hitting anything. I never felt like I was taking huge divots or anything like that. So, like I said, really impressed. It's a fun wedge. Definitely check it out. If you just go to edelgolf.com, EDEL. golf.com and check it out. Like I said, they've got 4 different sole grinds. They've got I think they make it through, what is it? It's like 48 through, or no, I think it's like 50 through 60. They make in terms of lofts, 48 through 60. So I mean, you can get pretty much whatever lofts you need, and then I mean, you could probably always bend them as well because they are pretty soft. So like I said, I'm super impressed. I'm super excited to get this thing out and play some more. If it was a 60, I'll tell you it was in the bag already. Since it's a 58, I'm going to have to see how it plays when I bend it. But if I get my hands on a 60 C grind, it's in the bag. So it just is. It's that good. So anyways, check those out. Like I said, I think I'm super impressed. I think they're great. I don't even have really anything negative to say. I guess my only negative to say with it would be they're a little pricey. I think they're $200, which is a little more expensive. But if you're doing an SM8, like, from WedgeWorks, they're $200 if you're doing like a raw. So, I don't think it's actually that crazy. But, yeah, and it's, like I said, just a really great wedge. So, the other wedge, which I kind of play as well, so it was, like I said, kind of a wedge day for me here, is the new Cobra Snakebite wedge, which if you haven't heard of the Snakebite wedge, is brand new from Cobra. It's kind of their, they've got a new groove, full face grooves, pretty decent micro milling on the face, and it's basically a wedge that they've made for, kind of a new wedge line. It's they make a couple different soles on it. But overall, just an aggressive wedge. It's something that, the grooves are basically 40% larger than their traditional groove. They're kind of wide and shallow. They're not as deep. Like I said, when you look at this thing, you can see the milling immediately in between the grooves, which is pretty intense. And overall, a good-looking wedge. I think Cobra has kind of an underrated wedge in terms of shape. A little higher toe and a little more squared off toe than the Edel. Not quite as rounded. The offset on it is pretty minimal as well. It basically, if the Edel has 0, this has like 0.1 millimeters. It's really, from hosel into the face, progressed into the leading edge. Extremely minimal in terms of offset, so it's got a great look to it. The leading edge is pretty straight. It's got just a hair of roundness to it, but it's pretty straight. And like I said, the toe's a little taller than the Edel there. But, just an overall kind of a more aggressive wedge and something that, especially in the higher lofts, the 56, 58, 60, it's going to have this full face groove where if you go to the 48 through 54, it's going to be kind of more of a traditional groove, a little more traditional shape. But basically these high toe or the wedges where they move some mass up near the toe is great for balls that when you strike it up high on the toe, it carries a little farther, carries a little more spin. It just kind of, has more mass there to pull off a better shot. Just like the PM grind, the high toe, a bunch of those. And I think they do work. Like, I've played a handful of them. And when you do hit it high off the face, you get a much more consistent shot out of it. You get closer to the hole. You can, you're not going to leave it short. It'll probably make it onto the green. Things like that. You just get away with it a little more on with wedges like these. So this one here, they said I hit the 56 in the one length, and this is the 60 in the standard length. And I was super excited when this came in. I was really excited to get it out there, just to try it. I mean, like I said, it looks really good, looks aggressive. I mean, it's one of those things it looks like when you set it down, you're going to peel the cover off the ball. It just has that much milling, and the grooves are big, and it just kind of reminds of the old box groove, those old Mac Daddies or those old Nike grooves that just shredded balls. And I was excited to get out on the course. This thing here, though, I mean, like I said, really good shape. Sole-wise, this is the one they sent in was it's a 60 with 8 degrees of bounce, and it's the versatile sole. So they've got a couple different sole options on these. This one here, the versatile, has basically much more heel and toe relief to it. So basically like a C grind. And then it typically has their kind of notched out channel, which, kind of helps that face not, or that leading edge not kind of raise up off the ground when you open up the face. But so that I was kind of a little worried. I said 8 degrees of bounce in a 60. That's a little low for me. I don't typically, 10 is about as low as I go. Depending on the sole width. The sole width on this is not bad. I mean, it's a little wider, but it's got that relief on the back, so it probably plays a little narrower than it looks. The leading edge, definitely a little sharper than the Edel, and but this thing here, I mean, performed really well. The you can still see marks in it where the cover was kind of sticking to the club face from hitting balls in the range. Off the turf with kind of full square face shots, really a good wedge. It's got just a little bit firmer than the Edel, a little more of a click to it, but nothing that's bad. Like I said, I would say this is very close to probably a little softer, a little quieter than the Mac Daddy 5 to me. I thought the Mac Daddy 5 this year was just a hair firm than comparable years. I think it's a little softer than that. I think it's basically put it right in between Vokey and Mac Daddy 5. So the jaws, I think that in terms of feel and sound is kind of a good comparison to it. Spin seemed to be really good. At the range, I was hitting balls again at these kind of 50, 75, and I think the other one was like 40 yards. They kind of little flags out there, kind of where my little bay was, and just consistent, easy to hit. I mean, and everything kind of hit again, which is kind of rough cut grass, and just stopped. I mean, some of them bounced back. I mean, it was just one of those. You could tell this thing kind of really was getting the ball, getting the ball spinning. Definitely launched a little higher than I thought. I thought it was going to be a little flatter just because with the high toe, a little more mass up top. It did launch a little higher than the Edel. I mean, again, we're comparing a 60 to a 58. But I think in the exact same lofts, I think the Cobra would fly it a little higher. Now this, here does have, high rev 2.0. So again, I think, that compared to a Nippon Modus 115, there's a few factors there that could, factor in this going a little higher. But overall, I thought this one a little higher than the Edel. But again, the full face grooves are great. It just gives you a bunch of confidence when you put, especially when you open the face. Like if you put this thing down, you got a ball that you need to hit high, you open the face, knowing that you have all the grooves all the way to the face and all the way to the toe. It just, because I mean, anytime you open the face or you hit a sand shot, I mean, typically you're hitting it higher and closer to the toe off the face. I mean, it's just what happens when you open up that face. And knowing that you have a little extra mass, you have some grooves, you have all that milling, it just gives you a little more confidence that you're going to be able to pull that shot off. But full shots that are kind of square, super easy to hit, especially off a mat. But opening it up, even off a mat, which I mean is probably the tightest lie you're going to get. Opening it up and getting under the ball, hitting it high, hitting something soft, kind of a soft flop shot, super easy to do. The versatile grind with that little Cobra notch taken out of the back. The leading edge raises very little off the ground when you open it up, and if you're somebody who that's a big thing to you, because visually I know there's a lot of golfers that when you open up the face, it's, that leading edge has got to stay down, or else a person just they can't play it. They just feel like they can't get under the ball, and I totally understand it. This thing here, I feel like when you open it up, that leading edge doesn't really raise up off the ground much, and you should be able to have that confidence you're going to be able to get under the ball, hit that flop shot, use the bounce to kind of project it up. So like I said, off the turf, kind of full to square shots, really consistent. I mean, really, similar to the King MIM wedge that I hit earlier. It would blend in with that set really well. Other than this one's chrome, and right now there's no black version yet. But like I said, those shots there just really easy. So over in the short game area, again, I think this thing really shines if you're somebody who likes to manipulate the face. If you're somebody who really likes to open the face up, hit those high lofted shots, this versatile grind, this Cobra versatile grind works really well. It's super easy to get through the turf. Like I said, that leading edge doesn't come up, even on kind of tighter lies, which again, here in Michigan, we're not going to have, like Augusta tight lies or anything like that. But for, spring grass that's kind of trampled down a little bit, I had no problem opening up the face with this thing, getting under it, hitting something high and easy to, and something that landed softly. Spin on it's phenomenal. It really does spin well. Even out of the rough, it does bite the ball. I mean, it gets under there. Shots come out. They did release a little less than the Edel. So like if I kind of had balls down, I didn't really hit like one shot after another, but I went back to the same spots and kind of hit some of the similar shots. And one of the shots was basically the green slightly elevated, and it kind of dips down and runs out to the first tee. So I would go down there, and you could kind of open it up, hit it, kind of open it up, get it up on the green to land softly, and kind of hit it towards one of the pins. And just noticing, hitting it at the same pin that I was hitting the Edel at, I felt like this did stop just a little bit short of the Edel. So I think this thing did spin a little bit more on open face shots. And again, this thing, I mean, the versatile grind, you can pretty much hit anything. Square shots. Now for me, pressing it forward a little bit to kind of hit that low, kind of spinner where you just need to kind of hop it over, say, the fringe and get it to check up pretty quick. This definitely noticed it does dig a little more. The leading edge is sharper, so it does dig a little more. But again, if you're a shallower player and you 8 degrees of bounce for a 60 is something that you typically play, I don't think this is abnormally sharp. It's not as sharp as, say, I mentioned those Epon Tour wedges before. It's not near as sharp as that. It's got a little roundness to it, but it definitely will catch that grass and have a little. It doesn't get through the turf quite as easily as the Edel does. And again, I'm not trying to direct compare these two because I think they're two kind of different players, but like I said, this thing spins really well. When you did kind of hit that low, kind of just nip that shot off the fringe, it checked up really quickly. Like I said, out of the rough, I think this thing spun a little better. Of a tight lie, I think it did again. It checked up just a little faster. It spun a little more. And like I said, the only thing that I would say is that, it didn't have quite as much bounce. So for a person like me who's a little more steep, it didn't quite have as good a turf interaction. The other thing that I'll ding it for, which again, I mean, nothing is perfect. You get a lot of glare off the face. The face is milled, so it's not, the backside of it's all chrome, but the face is this big milling, so it doesn't look as bright. It's not mirrored. You can see where it kind of ends, where the face milling starts and the high polished chrome begins. But that milling still reflected a lot of light, and it was a bright morning. It was a nice morning, and I definitely had a couple shots where I just kind of went, whoa, like that shine right into the eyes. So, that part about it, I hope they make kind of like either a black version or a different finish on it, maybe like a copper or something like that. we cut down a ton on the glare, but you know, in terms of performance, I think it's a really good wedge. It plays really well. I think Cobra, same thing, is super underrated when it comes to wedges. I think the Snakebite, for especially with this versatile grind in the 60, if you're somebody who's a little shallower player and you know likes to kind of open the face a lot, hit high lofted kind of soft shots in there, this thing's definitely worth a try. I think you'll find it has, you know, like I said, a ton of spin. Super easy to hit, really consistent, and I think you get a lot of spin out of the rough with it. So this is probably one of the spinnier wedges. I would say this thing's pretty, you know, right up there with RTX Zipcore in terms of spin. I think those two, the RTX Zipcore, which I've said a bunch of times, is probably the spinniest wedge I've hit this year. I think this thing's right with it. I think this thing checks up really hard. I wasn't able to hit them, you know, side by side. I didn't bring my RTX Zipcore with me that morning, but I would be hard pressed to think that this thing spins too much less than that. So I bet they're pretty similar. But like I said, the Snakebite's really good. I really like the 60. I love the full face grooves on it. I think for a higher lofted wedge, it's definitely an option that people should look at. And you know, if you're looking for new wedges, you know, the Cobra stuff is, I think, like I said, super underrated. I think it's got a good shape. They offer a couple different sole grinds on it. They offer like a versatile kind of a wide low, which is a little wider sole. But still not high bounce, and then they have basically the classic grind, which is basically the full sole. So, you know, a couple different options depending on you know, on what you're gonna play. But you know, like I said, a really solid offering. Like I said, my only ding to it is that it does have a little glare off the face. So if that changes a little bit, I think you've got a darn good wedge. But yeah, so that's kind of Wedge Wednesday, I guess. But like I said, really impressed with both. Super excited to hit both. I'm gonna take probably the Edel out if I play Thursday, or who knows? I don't know. I gotta see. Usually I take them both. I wouldn't care. But I might be playing a little skins game, so I don't know if they'll really want me playing like 15 clubs or 16 clubs or whatever it is. So, but yeah, hit a bunch of stuff out there. I'll talk about a little later. We'll do another show on some of the stuff I'm finding, been throwing some shafts at some different heads and kind of narrowing some stuff down. So getting pretty excited. My league stuff's up the 22nd. So we know for sure every Thursday I'm going to have at least 9 holes to tinker with some stuff and play some different things. But yeah, but super excited for both these wedges. So if you have any questions, hit me up at Club Junkie Pod on Instagram. I'm also there on Twitter. I don't use it quite as much. It's mostly Instagram. And then also every Wednesday, pretty much every Wednesday, I do a little Q&A session. So if you have any questions on anything, and you know, have any question what I've hit, what I haven't hit, anything like that, you know, again, at Club Junkie Pod, and I love answering questions and chat with everybody. So hit me up there, and then hopefully everybody has a good Masters, man. Enjoy watching. I'm super, like I said, I'm super excited this weekend. I'm going to be basically plopped in front of the TV, and that'll be it. So everybody have a good rest of the week. Enjoy the Masters, and we'll talk next week.